Welcome, everybody, to episode 2 of the Summit Podcast. Today, we have our very special guest, Elevate's own head coach for a Call of Duty team, Javid. Javid, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for getting me on the podcast. It means a lot, and hopefully I can give you my perspective as a European coach. So where to begin? What I'll do is I'll start from day one. I'll start what got me into competitive, and it's not the conventional route. A lot of people got into competitive through Call of Duty. I wasn't someone who got into competitive via Call of Duty. I started from a game called Ghost Recon. Through Ghost Recon, I found out what game battles was, and this was around the time of SOCOM was a big thing. So North Americans would play SOCOM, Europeans would play Ghost Recon. From Ghost Recon, then I came across Call of Duty. So World at War was my first proper COD. I was playing, GBs and pubs and stuff like that, and it progressed ever since. I got into competing with direction and aim at the start of Modern Warfare 3. So this is when we had EGL LAN events. So EGL is like our local LAN events for you Americans out there. So got in via EGLs and from there was attending LAN events. I played in the Advanced Warfare Gfinity Pro League, I think it was called at the time, and then ever since then I've been trying to go to events and trying to go pro. Obviously that didn't work out, and what happened was on Black Ops 4 when it went from 4v4 to 5v5. I wasn't enjoying the game. I wasn't enjoying the format. I wasn't enjoying the, I lost passion for Call of Duty. My mental health was in the bin. My physical health was in the bin, and I felt like it was time for me to finish university. So on Black Ops 4, I took the decision to sort of quote unquote retire or step back. And then once I did step back from competing, I was approached by Whalers on the previous Elevate team, and they were in the Pro League. They desperately needed a coach. They weren't having success in the Pro League, and that's how I got into coaching. I missed competing, as you do. Players that retire, you think for a month and you're thinking, okay, this is fine, but nothing really ever fills the void of competing. And I wanted to get back into COD in some way. I didn't want to compete. I was completely sure I was done, and I think coaching was the direction that I wanted to go in. With coaching, it was a lot more difficult than I expected. I thought because I was an okay player and I had experience, I thought it would translate over as a coach. One thing that I was really surprised by coaching is it requires a different skill set compared to competing. Coaching is very selfless. And playing is very selfish. And that was one thing that I was really taken back by. A lot of the different qualities you need as a coach, I felt like I didn't have when I initially started coaching on Black Ops 4. It wasn't enough just to be experienced in the game to be a good coach, and that was one thing I tried to really work on in this past few years. Last season, I was the coach of Train Hard Esports, and notably, I was the coach of Hydra. So I coached him for the previous season to get him ready for the CDL, and I've worked with a lot of really good European players, and then that leads me on to this season, where I'm the head coach of Elevate, and I'm working with some of the best players in Europe.
It sounds like you had a very long COD career, and I think this is just the beginning for you as a coach. What you've been doing with our Call of Duty team, we've been killing it, right? I think we're definitely one of the most consistent Call of Duty teams in the European scene right now. Just making a lot of grand finals. So yeah, congrats on that, and I'm excited for you in your future. So I guess with coaching, right? What are some frustrations of coaching? Like being a player and then being a coach yourself. Like when you see someone make like a bad play, do you be like, oh man, like what are some of those frustrations when you see something that you would have probably done differently as a player?
Well, the biggest frustration when it comes to coaching is everything is out of your control. You can prepare as much as you want, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's up to the players to execute and implement everything that you talk about. When it doesn't happen, it's easier to sit back and look at the minimap and saying, okay, next time you need to do X, Y, and Z. But when you're playing, and this is the appreciation and the respect that I have for every player trying to make it, there's 100 different things going through your head. It's not as easy as just saying it and then implementing it. It's about timings and situations and loads of different factors go into it. So I would say that is my biggest frustration as a coach, the fact that everything is out of my control, and that they are the differences between being a coach and being a player. As a coach, it's less. It is stressful to be a coach of a top challengers team, but it's less stressful in my opinion, when you're competing. You don't have to worry about positioning. You don't have to worry about your aim. You don't have to worry about how you're feeling. I don't have to deal with any of that as a coach. So I think they would be the differences.
Okay. Yeah. So as you know, Land's coming back. I think the NA major is being played tomorrow or this weekend?
Tomorrow. Yeah, it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Yeah. So what do you expect? So for when Lanes come back in terms of like players and fans like mentally?
Well, I don't think it'll at the moment because there aren't any fans. I don't think there will be much of a difference. I think the major variability that we will get on LAN will be dependent on the meta that we have on LAN. So, for example, assault rifles are historically better on LAN. So whether we play a game where it's gone from a 2 Krig to a 3 Krig, that would be the most variability. That could actually change things quite a bit because some teams with 3 Krigs might be more suited to doing so compared to other teams who aren't. So that would be the biggest variability. But I think we will get the biggest difference at LAN when fans come back because it adds a different dynamic, a different element. When you're playing at LAN, when you don't have the fans around you, when you're playing in a booth, for example, there isn't that pressure, right? Yes, okay, people are going to be watching you on a stream, but knowing that someone's watching you live is different, in my opinion, compared to when watching on a stream. So I've played at events where we've had fans, and I've played with at events where it's just strictly been a stream. And as a player, just my opinion, you can tell the difference. The pressure is there. There is a different element of pressure on your shoulders there. So I think once fans do come back online, then we can really talk about which players crumble under pressure, which players will change under that pressure. You've got hundreds of optic fans screaming at you. It will affect you. It doesn't matter if you've got soundproof headphones and stuff like that. They aren't that good. They will hit. They will make a difference.
So and I guess follow up to that is how do you even prepare for like a player mentally as a coach for that land pressure?
There's different ways to tackle it. Now, pressure when a player chokes or when a player is under pressure, it's not a spontaneous event. It's a series of events or symptoms, as we like to call it. Now, what I would recommend for every aspiring player or any player that's feeling the pressure is to recognize their symptoms. Now, what I mean by that is when you choke under pressure, it's due to a fight or flight response. Okay. And before this fight or flight response, your body gives you warnings. So whether your heart's beating fast, or whether you're sweating, or whether you're feeling hot, right? Everyone's different. Whether you're hyperventilating, each individual player needs to figure out their symptoms, and in order to counteract them symptoms, in order to remain calm under pressure, you want to use meditation. You want to use breathing techniques. A lot of the CDL players have been memed for using breathing techniques, such as Bance. He's one that's notable for using breathing techniques, but you want to use meditation and breathing techniques to get yourself in the zone, to slow down your heart rate, to relax your body, to loosen up your body. So that's what that's an avenue that I would recommend for preparing players for dealing with the pressure of LAN or dealing with pressure in general.
Got it. Um, yeah, I mean, so going from there, I mean, land has always been interesting area, especially the they call it the passion pit, right? You can really sense the passion there. I think that's where it's always gets the craziest as well, where you're literally right across the opponents, and fans are like behind you as well. Like if you're making a big play, like they're cheering for you, they're rooting you on, and I think everybody misses LAN, right? And I think it's nice that things are starting to open up, and hopefully we'll get lands for the challenger scene soon.
I hope so. I don't think so. I don't think we will for a while. Just obviously, it's out of everyone's control. But it's good to have lands returned because no matter how good you do online, there's always going to be an asterisk. There's always going to be a question mark. You know, if you can do it on LAN, then it can give you credibility. Then people will give you the respect that you deserve for winning online if you can replicate that at an event. So it's good to see lands returned.
And so I guess going from there, like who do you think in the CDL has the most to prove now that everything's shifting over to LAN?
Toronto, definitely. Atlanta, Atlanta have proven themselves at events individually, in my opinion. And it's no disrespect to Toronto. I think Toronto are absolutely incredible, but because they've won a major and it's online, they're going to have an asterisk around their name whether they can replicate this at an event. I think they will. I think Toronto are too good. I think Toronto, the reason why Toronto is as good as they are is because they're on the same page. Their teamwork is amazing. Their fundamentals are good. They're well drilled, well prepared, and I think Toronto will replicate it at an event. But they are the ones, in my opinion, who've got a lot to prove.
Okay. I guess segue to this would be: would you rather have a team that the four individuals perfect chemistry, or a team with no chemistry but individual talent?
Oh, the first point that you made, team chemistry, team culture, being on the same page, is better than everything. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you're not on the same page and you don't have the teamwork, if you're getting team shot, if you're getting crossfire, there's no amount of talent that's going to bail you out of that. If you're getting shot by two people at the same time, you aren't going to win that. If you have to break a setup and there's good crossfires and trades, just it doesn't matter how much talent you have. It's Call of Duty. You're dead, and you've staggered the way, for example. So team chemistry and being on the same page, having good understanding, good team culture, that is the biggest thing in my opinion. And in order to get success, and I think you can see that with Toronto and Atlanta, the way they're playing, the trust that they have in each other, the team chemistry that they've built, because you build that team chemistry based on the same understanding of the game. Team chemistry doesn't happen just because you're teaming with someone. It happens when your understanding of the game is essentially as close as possible to each other. When you have an idea of what you want to do in a lot of situations, and you can then you can relate it back to your fundamentals and your team shots and your crossfires and your tradings, because you have that core understanding as a team.
Got it. Um, yeah, I mean, it's definitely hard to build team chemistry. I think that's the thing where it's like it's not easy to train, right? Chemistry is something that just takes time, and it just seems like in the challenger league, the challenger scene, really, a lot of these teams they're just changing. Something's not working. Like the honeymoon phase ends, they go on. They make a new team. Like they don't really stick together, work out all these issues, and try to just fix it in order to prepare themselves down the road.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just
Sorry. Go ahead.
say the issue with that is once you team chemistry and your success of a team is built on trust. As soon as you lose trust in a player, you know that's when you can't develop that team chemistry. When you don't trust each other, you're not going to be able to develop a winning team culture or a winning mentality. Then it becomes more individually focused rather than team centric. And that's the issue that, if you're constantly changing teams and chopping teams, you cannot build that trust. You cannot build that team culture, that team chemistry. And that's an issue with teams changing every week.
Yeah. I guess, is there a COD, like like from the beginning till now, or a game mode that you think that doesn't require team chemistry, that you could just get away with, just pure talent?
No, I truly believe if you truly want to be one of the most, consistent teams on any game, there has to be teamwork. There has to be an element of trust. There has to be a good team culture. There's only so much talent can do. We've had power squads and superstar squads in the past where they haven't won possibly because there isn't that trust or that team chemistry, or there's a clash of egos and attitudes, and a clash of heads, for example. So superstars on paper don't necessarily win, and we use traditional sports as an example, and it's the same thing in traditional sports. Having superstars on paper doesn't equal success or guaranteed success. You know, it can help,
Right.
but you've got to
Yep.
put the pieces together.
Yep. Yeah, definitely makes sense. Um, so I guess moving on, tell me a little bit more about GAs. Like, as someone who's new in the scene, how do GAs operate? What are your thoughts on them? And how would you change them to make it more efficient or productive?
Right. Yeah. So GAs is short for Gentleman's Agreement, and essentially what that is what a group of players or a council of players determines to be overpowered, or which causes a reduction in the skill gap, or something which is easy to use, or which is completely broken. Um, we add that to the GA list. So, for example, smokes. Smokes had an issue with how they worked. Sometimes when you're in the smoke, you can see them, but the people outside the smoke couldn't see you, and that's not how smoke should work, right? That's just an example, or an example where it's made a gun easier to use, or very inconsistent to use, or brings the skill level down or the skill gap down because everyone can do it, for example. So that's the whole purpose of a GA. I think GAs in COD are needed. It's a necessary evil, because we don't get the developer support that we should get, in my opinion, or as quick as we should get to, in order to buff and nerf certain things. So we have to take it upon ourselves to do so, because we have tournaments every week. We can't rely on devs every month or 2 months to buff or nerf something, and sometimes they don't even do that. So we have to take it upon ourselves to try and create a fair environment for all the players. A lot of the wider community don't like GAs. They think it's excessive, but you need to realize, you give a pro player some of these weapons, they will show you how overpowered it is. It might not be overpowered in your hands, but you give it to some of the best players in the game, they will show you how broken it really is. So that's why I think GAs are definitely needed.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen on Twitter people just, there's just been like tweets saying like how, this whole GA system's a little broken. Like if someone is not happy with a certain gun, they'll be like, oh, I'm calling for a GA. Like, what are your thoughts on that, and how do we fix that?
I don't think that's ever been the case. I think that's been blown out of proportion. I think it's just a narrative that people have run with because of one or two tweets. That's never been the case. In Europe, we have our own GAs. North America used to have their own GAs. I think it's universal now. I think we all use the same GAs, but everyone tries to create a fair environment with a rule set which can provide the most fun. If I'm using a weapon which reduces the skill of a certain role, then that's reducing the skill level, and that's not going to make it fun. If I've got a weapon that can do it all, then there's no point of having an SMG or a particular AR role, or a player doing X, Y, or Z, because everyone can just use that weapon, and then you'll find that there's a lack of diversity and a lack of variability, and it's just not fun. We don't want a meta where we've got 4 AK-47s because it is the best weapon to use, and it's a weapon which can bail you out in a lot of situations, and it's got a stupid headshot multiplier and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So that's why I do think it has been blown out of proportion, and GAs are definitely necessary.
So if any team were to meet a EU team on land and the GAs aren't the same, how do you guys resolve that conflict?
If it was LAN, it would be the same. We would
Okay.
communicate with North Americans, and we would have them in a group, and we'd do it all together. Simply because we don't have an opportunity to play each other, then we have our own GAs. They will have their own. But if it was a global thing, then we'd have a universal GAs like we have in previous CODs.
Why don't players follow just the like the CDL GAs? So that way, when there are, if someone does get called up, they will be, ready, and they don't have to like get used to something all over again.
The biggest problem with that was the Challenger season started 3-4 months before the pro season did. The challengers were putting in a lot more time than the actual CDL players did, because we have tournaments every week, so we need to put in more time. because of the lack of game time from the pros, no disrespect, they didn't have a clue what was going on half the time. We were ahead of the curve. Europe and North America, the GA system was ahead of the curve in most respects. And because we have tournaments and they don't, we need to do something to make it fair for everyone and fun for everyone. The pros aren't going to do it on behalf of the challengers because there's no need for them to do it. So we have to look out for ourselves.
Got it. Okay. I guess moving on to the challenger scene. Just what are your thoughts? I know I think it was Wee Man tweeted something about you know, teams being on stream. So like what are your thoughts on teams not wanting to stream their games?
Um, it's difficult. I understand why certain teams don't want to be on stream. But we shouldn't really have a choice on whether we're on stream or not. It should just be based on whoever's running the stream, the official stream, the challenger stream. It should be their call. I think fair enough. They've somehow teams managed to not be on stream once, or only once. Fair enough with that, but it's a difficult one. I can understand why, but then I can understand why we shouldn't have that, because then if they're not on stream, then you can have another team who refuse to play on stream, and then so on and so on and so on and so on. Before you know it, everyone in the league's not wanting to be on stream, and we're not helping ourselves. So if you get told you have to be on stream, then you need to be on stream. That's it. If it was up to me, every single game would be on stream. Literally every single one, so no one can complain.
Yeah, because I think from an org perspective, it's like, okay, if we are paying these players, we want to get as much exposure as possible, right? Because that's what the sponsors want. That's what's going to help for future sponsors as well. For players who not want to be on stream, I get what the players are from. We don't want to leak the strats. You're trying to save them, right? And when you're on stream, just everything, it gets shown to basically everybody, right? People can just take notes. They can see the setups. They can see, like, how do you guys break? How do these kinds of things. Yeah, I think that's just a tricky area in terms of like, where do you find the balance between players and orgs, right? I mean, for me at least, I just want us to win. I think that's more important than anything else, than the stream, just being on stream, because yes, it gives the players exposure, but from an org perspective, like, we can definitely find other ways to give the players exposure to the public, and just creating content, right? If we create more content, that makes up for the lack of stream, and if we're winning, people will follow. I think it comes down to, like, if you're winning over and over again, people will know who you are. You don't necessarily need to be on stream, but from a production standpoint, it gets a little hard when these. I mean, I have a lot of respect for all these casters and the producers. Is like, they take time off of the day. I don't know if they're paid or not. Some might be volunteer. And when they're like, okay, I'm here for 12 hours, right? But after 4 hours, like, in the later rounds, like closer to the finals, like the quarter, semis, and finals, teams are like, oh, I don't want to stream because I don't want to leak my strats or anything. And I just feel like it makes it hard for other people that do want to watch the games, but there's nothing to watch.
Yeah. There should be equality. Either everyone's on stream or nobody's on stream. When you don't have that equality, then you'll find that teams are going to refuse, say, oh well, this is not fair, then this is not fair, this is not fair, and then before you know it, nobody's on stream. So just force everyone to be on stream, and then that's it. No one can complain. Everyone's got footage on everyone.
Yeah, I think that's that's the most fair way, and I think hopefully things change down the road for us. Yeah, I mean, continuing on, in the challenger scene, on the topic of the challenger scene, like, who do you think would be the next up and comer or up and comers to make pro league? We've seen a lot in this game itself. We've seen a good amount last year as well for Modern Warfare compared to like previous years, right? I think like Black Ops 4, there weren't that many that got called up. Modern Warfare, like, once teams started to, I think once the franchise started, the CEL started, that's where we really got to see like a good number of players really starting to get called up into the league.
Yeah, well, from Europe, I'd say, someone like Byron Nasty, everyone from Elevate, everyone from Auglas, Trey, There's a lot of players in Europe, and you can say the same in North America. There's a lot of talent. There's so many, so many ex-CDR players in the challengers. You've got players like Parasite. You've got Sib. You've got John, Judge. North America has so much talent. So it's difficult to say who's going to be up next because there's so many players you can pick from and you can choose from, and there's so much talent. So yeah, we just have to hope for an expansion, and then you'll have all these talented players in the CDL.
No, definitely agree with that. And well, I guess going off the topic of just up and comers and stuff, what are your thoughts on like AR players not getting the love in terms of being called up? Like, why do you think that's the case?
It's simple. AR players there's usually just one main AR on a team. There's just less spots. It's been like this for years. Even when I competed, I was a main AR. Main AR players are never. They never. It's difficult to say main AR because there's a lack of spots, main AR spots. That's naturally going to mean there's going to be a lack of main ARs coming into the league, but also the main AR role isn't as, how do I put it? It's not as demanding as an SMG role. You can AR the same way for years and get away with it in the league. With an SMG, as soon as your progression with an SMG declines, then your spot is at risk. Because it's harder to do, in my opinion. It requires it requires a different skill set when compared to an AR, but it requires more skills to run an SMG. And this is coming from a main AR. I had the highest KD at Anaheim, top 5 at Champs, whatever. But doing so wasn't difficult. Doing so with a sub is difficult. The speed that you have to play. The skill set that's required. So yeah, that's why the main ARs aren't replaced as often or as much, because main ARs stay good for longer because their role isn't as difficult or requires as much of a skill set compared to SMGs. That's slowly changing, mind you. That is slowly changing as the game's progressing and progressing and progressing. But that is my opinion.
Yeah, because I think there's just been a bunch of SMGs that has been called up to the league, and not like I think it comes down to supply and demand, right? Like there's just not a lot of demand for main ARs, but there's a ton, especially in the challenger scene, and we've seen a good amount, when they trim the roster from 5 to 4 per player on a team. A lot of good players are in the challenger scene, and just trying to find a big break and getting back up there. If you were to be a head coach of a franchise, right, like a new franchise, who would you pick? Like, let's say they gave you, full responsibility of coaching, like picking the players, and you can only pick from the challenger scene or whoever is like free agents as of right now, or free agents, challenger scene. What would be the four? Like, who would be the 4 players that you'd pick? NA and EU combined, or and Australia?
Easy answer. Elevate.
The whole Elevate team?
The whole Elevate team, straight up. Byron Nasty, put Byron Nasty in there, and that's it. That's my team. That's it.
Gotta love it.
Easy answer. I back my guys, to the moon and back. I have so much trust and faith in them, so I will pick them. That's my answer.
And I think the guys itself. Hey guys, this is not scripted or anything. This was we didn't plan this. This is genuine answer. But I think the teams, from watching our players play, like there's a lot of chemistry. Like that they trust each other, and I think they came from how they formed the team. Luke was telling me the story of it. It's like they're called passion, right? Because I think previous teams, like, just things didn't work out, and then I think they all wanted to win. And we've been in, I don't know what the stat is. Like, how many grand finals have we played in now? Like
something like 9 out of 10. Something like
that. Yeah, something along those lines. We have to find a way to finish those elites, man. Like we're forever number 2 in elites, but we'll come in first in opens, and in those cups, the opens. So once we convert those elites to first place, I think we'll give War a good shot in terms of like their performance last year. I think War had a really that team last year. What was it? It's like part Orglis plus Denza, right? Or
That team was unstoppable last year. We had, I think, 7 or 8 seconds, and we've lost to them every single time. Even when we beat them in winners, we got to grand finals twice, and they've beat us in 2 best-of-5s, and it was just they were so good. I mean, yeah, it was August plus Denzer essentially.
Yeah. Orglis plus Denza, yeah. That I mean, I was following, like, we weren't Elevate wasn't in the challenger scene, but I was definitely keeping tabs, trying to see, like, okay, do we come in and, like, what would be the move, like, who would pick up, and that team was just, I know they were just winning every single weekend, and it was like, sure, they'll lose in the winners finals, but then they'll come into, they'll win the losers finals, go to grand finals, and they'll win two BO5s, right, to win the whole thing. I was like, that's just impressive right there.
I'll never forget the time they won two 2Ks or two challenger events from losers round one. Like that takes some amount of mental strength and stamina to do so. It was incredible in that team last season.
Do you think we'll see a team like that in challengers again, like our team aside? Or do you think that's kind of like a one-off where everything was just firing on all cylinders?
It'll be very difficult. I'm not going to say yes or no, but all I'll say is it'll be incredibly difficult to remain that consistent. Yeah.
And then, so I guess when the team has that much dominance in the challenger scene, right? Why didn't more of their players get picked or called up to the league? Visa issue aside.
Um, Europe has a really weird negative stigma around us. So a lot of this is just from what I've heard. It might not be true, so I'd like to apologize if it's not true. But I've heard that apparently a lot of Americans think that Europeans are just complete bots. That we're not. It's not a talented region, and it's not a stacked region. Everyone knows North America has a lot of talent. North America is stacked. It's an incredible region with some incredible players. But let's not take away from the talent that we have in Europe and how good, some of the players in Europe actually are. Look at some of the names we have in Europe. And I think slowly, with Insight and with Hydra and all the Europeans doing what they're doing in the CDL, I think slowly that stigma is being removed. When S&G went over to North America last season and won, I don't know, like 4 or 5 events, I think that's when North America was, starting to give us credit, but we're not in a position where we'll get the same amount of respect yet. But hopefully, hopefully North Americans will respect Europeans. Yeah, so one day I'm pretty sure they will.
Yeah, I mean, if we didn't have COVID restrictions, I definitely would have done something similar to what Singularity have done, and flown you guys here, have you guys stay here for a couple of months, just to play in those NA tournaments, to build a name for you guys. Um, at the end of the day, that's what we want, right? We want to help create a story. We want to help, showcase you guys and help you guys get from challengers to the league. That's, I think, Elevate has had a lot of history in COD, and I think what we want to do now is, help be known as the org that fosters talent, right? We want to be like, okay, if you're with us, we'll take care of you guys. We'll give you guys everything that you need in order to succeed. And then from there, hopefully you're able to make good use of this opportunity, make a name for yourself, and get to the league. Like, when you get to the league, that's how we know we've succeeded.
We like North America. We know North America is talented. There's some incredible players in North America, incredible coaches, and incredible. You know, we like North America. We just want a bit more credit for Europeans. We don't. That's all we're asking. A little bit more credit from Europeans, not to just completely think we're all garbage. I've seen a lot of these players, and hopefully they get the opportunities that they deserve. Unbelievable talent in Europe.
Yeah, and I think, as like you said, the whole Toronto team, like, that's a full EU lineup that's been winning. Hydra has been making a name for himself as well. So I think as more and more of these players from EU start making a name for themselves in the CDL, it will open people eyes and say, like, hey, there actually is plenty of talent there. Maybe you should take a deeper look into it.
Really.
Yeah. So moving on, I this is where it gets a little spicy. I want you to rank the top 5 NNA challenger teams, like, just based off, like, what you know so far.
Right, so you've got rosters such as Methods, Slacked, Saints, and Hamza, Sib, Jimbo, Fire, Accuracy, Parasite, Zack, Jordan, Zinks. Okay, so there's some of the rosters that are formed, and you have, where is it? You've got E-Star, you've got Draza, Spart, Prolute, Mohawk. You've got Trash Bros. I'm a huge fan of Trash Bros. You've got Team Canada, such as Royalty, Dav. I'm a huge fan of Royalty. A huge fan of Diamond.
BBG.
Yeah, BBG. Huge fan of BBG themselves. You know, big fan of Pentagram. We tried to pick him up on Elevate in the Pro League on Black Ops 4. Big fan. Big fan of God RX. You know, Ronin. Huge fan of him. It's stacked. Listen, North America is stacked. It's really, really difficult to rank North America because, my God, everyone is so good over there. But the problem is, guys, you're changing rosters every week. I'm begging, please stop changing rosters. Jesus Christ, let me keep up with some of these changes. You know, that's why I respect BBG so much, because they've had the same roster for a while now. It's why I respect E-Star so much. They've had the same roster for a while before they made that change with Venom and Fellow. But a lot of good talent. Obviously, Draza and Spart, their team. I just want to say I'm a big fan of Prolute and Spart. I had the pleasure of working with them for a few days, like 2 weeks. And Prolute has one of the best attitudes I've ever seen from a COD player. I'm not surprised he's winning. That kid, if you had a definition of what a winning mentality is on textbooks, right? He would have it. He would be what what you'd class as a winning mentality. And Chris is incredible. Chris is a vibe. Chris has a really good mentality as well. He's so talented. So I'm not surprised that they've won the challenges. So obviously they're the team to beat. Now whether I'm going to rank them, it's going to be difficult. You know, it's just so hard to say because on paper they're also evenly matched. You know, I'm not sure where I'm going to rank Methods, Slacked, Saints, and Hamza. Saints is a really good player. You know, big fan of him as well. Big fan of accuracy. I did a case study on accuracy last weekend, and he was unfairly crucified by Reddit and the wider public as someone, because he wasn't dropping over a 1 with his AR, he was useless or he was bad. Whatever. That was not the case. He was he was very good as someone who enabled Priester. For every 0.9 accuracy was dropping, Priester was dropping 1.4, 1.3, 1.4, for example. So so it's just really hard to rank everyone, honestly. Mainly because we just don't know how they're going to play, and if we're just doing it on paper, then every team is incredibly close. So that's my answer. As much as you probably. It's
Fair enough.
difficult.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's plenty of talent in the NA scene where a lot of these guys have been in the pro league before, and because of the rosters changing from five players to 4, they got a short end of the stick, and they've just been trying to prove themselves and get back to the league.
I
What about?
will say, one day I do want to work with Byron and Chris again. I do want to work with them properly, and I want to work with someone like Parasite as well. Like that guy, everything. I want to pick his brain, his COD brain. Like that guy is incredible. I want to work with someone like Accuracy as well. So there's a lot of there's a lot of talented players up there. You know what I mean? So it's just difficult to say.
I agreed. What about on the EU side? I know obviously Elevate's going to be number 1, but who would you rank as 2, 3, 4, and 5?
Well, I'd put August and Elevate tied at first. I think we're so evenly matched. I think we've seen it. I would put Mavericks as third. I think Mavericks are incredibly talented. I'd put now this is where it gets difficult. Maybe I'd put War like fourth, or Trey's team as fourth. I'd put them maybe together. I'd put maybe Trey's team as fourth, War as fifth, and then B Sport as 6. I'd put maybe them 3 in the same tier. So
Beast Boys. Who's that one?
B Sport, Team B Sport is Henry, Dave, Beans, and B Sport. Beans and I'm a big fan of Henry. They're I think they're incredible players. I'm a big fan of Team Defrag as well. So Defrag, Trey, Nelson, Joe.
Hot top meta.
Yeah. So what I'd put is I'd put August and Elevate, as
1 and 2. Oh, yeah.
And then Mavericks underneath that, and then there's a little bit of a gap, a tiny gap, and then War, Hot Tub Meta, and then B Sport Josh. And then God knows where I'm putting everyone else. I'd put, Watson's team's right close there. Watson's team's really good. I think,
Million Strays. Yep.
yeah. And then I'd put Originals Hockey in that. They've been really good. They've been really improving recently, and I'd put them up there. And then I don't know where I'd put everyone else. Everyone else would be on the same tier, like Team Genesis and Team who else? Jed, for example. I'd put them. So yeah, that's how I do it. I think that's the fairest way of doing it.
That's fair. I mean, I don't know if they're gonna be hearing this podcast, but we'll see. If they take it to heart, and all of a sudden, come what I think this weekend. I don't know if it's gonna be released by then. But whenever we release the next cup and next tournament, all of a sudden there's a target on our back, and you just see like they drop what 30 bombs left and right. Just feel like, all right, oh hold up, it was just a ranking.
Yeah, no, I don't mean any disrespect. I'm just trying to take into account of all the tournaments that we've had and the elites, and how I rate some of these players. I do rate a lot of these players highly. So again, I'm just a coach, right? I like to rate everyone highly. Anyone who's good at COD, I will rate you highly, and hopefully you succeed. I want everyone to succeed. As weird as that sounds.
Orgless aside, who do you think is like which team gives us the most trouble?
Mavericks, no question.
Mavericks.
Mavericks, yeah. We for whatever reason, Mavericks we struggle quite a lot against Mavericks. I don't know whether it's the Spanish host or whether it's the how we match up or the vetoes. I don't know. I mean, we have overcome them 5 or 6 times, but even when we win 3-0, it's like really close, and it's never we've only ever blown them out once, and ever since then it's always been close. And look at the names on that team, so incredibly talented. I'm a big fan of Super, Vikal, Sukri. Worked with Sukri last season, and I'm a big fan of Eric Boom.
Yeah, and I think just like looking off their Twitter, they got like they're in like a boot camp every time they play, right? Like all the cups, like there's like they have their PCs there, like you can tell the vibes are high when they're there, and good for them. Like I'm happy for them that that Mavericks is that supportive of the team.
Yeah, it's good to see. It's nice to see, but the Spanish scene is incredible. It's pretty big. It's bigger than you'd probably expect, and everyone in Spain is so diehard for these teams. It's nice. It's nice to see.
What happened with I think if we're talking about Spanish teams, I think back then it was Team Heretics, right? Where that was like the Spanish team. Like what happened to those players?
Well, they're on war, aren't they? Journey, Lucky Metals, Methods retired, and then Vortex has disappeared off the face of the earth. I'm not sure where Vortex is anymore, but obviously War did start off, as the team to beat. They were super successful for quite a lot of the way, but they've got rid of Nvidia for Yako, and they've not had the most success ever since then. Especially for the team of that caliber. You look at Journey, Lucky, and Metals, and they should be winning games 3v4. They're incredible players, and they've shown how good they can be. So it's very surprising to see them not have the same amount of success, not to even be in the discussion for the best teams in Europe and challenges. So it is very surprising to see.
Do you think making the switch from Nvidia to Yaka was the move, or do you think that they should have stuck it out and fix what, like maybe do a role swap or some sort?
They should have. This is just my opinion. And with my opinion, I'm not there in their scrims. I don't know how they are as people or their attitudes. There could very well have been a personal thing with Nvidia and one of the players, or like a lack of trust. I don't know. But from my opinion, it should have been Super for Nvidia. Keep Metals as an SMG. He's one of the best SMGs in Europe. Journey as well. They can be one of the best SMGs in Europe. I don't understand why he's on flex with Lucky on main. You move Lucky to flex, you put Metals on a sub, and you pick up Super as a main AR, and that would be a championship caliber team, in my opinion. Obviously, they have their reasons, which I don't know about. But that's from the outside looking in, that would be my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, I think that team, I think they were known as like the Rams before, right? Before they became like Los Galacticos, and then they became Team War. Yeah, I knew they were dominating for a while, and then I guess it could just be like maybe other teams started catching up, right? They started off like way ahead of everybody else just because they understood the game a little bit better. And then, as time progressed, like other players, like other teams started to understand the game a little bit better as well. You like, okay, rotations, like this is the best way to hold this site, this is the best way to break this certain hill. And it, there's just a bunch of factors that are involved that we definitely don't know behind the scenes as well.
I mean, yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but the thing is, they should be getting even better. Even if teams are catching up, they should, they should still be remaining consistent, because that should help them the longer they play together, so they know what to do in situation X or situation Y. But sometimes they don't look like they know what they're doing. As harsh as that sounds, and I do genuinely think it was just not the correct roster change, in my opinion. Especially when you look at the three people on that team, they should be doing better than they should be expecting more from themselves. I rate them super, super, super highly. I think most of Europe rates them super highly. So them struggling is definitely concerning, and it's definitely not expected.
Um, Moving on from just talking about teams, like what's the most common problem you see at the challenger level, and what do you have like an advice for these problems?
It's difficult. In North America, it's a lot more obvious, because teams are changing rosters every 2 or 3 days. That's a bit more obvious. I think it has been the case in Europe for quite a while, where teams were changing rosters every week or so. I think once you have teams who are more stable, then you can build a foundation and a solid platform, and you can go from there. So I think that would be one thing. But how you approach practice, your work ethic, the value that you take out of practice needs to definitely be looked at by some of these teams. I'm not going to name which teams, but I've heard quite a bit. Things do spread about that people aren't taking practice as serious as it should, and if you're not going to take practice seriously, then you're never going to fix on things and improve. So that would be my advice.
Okay. And who do you think is playing perfect COD in the challenger scene?
No one. It's impossible to play perfect COD.
Okay. Who's the closest to playing, like where you're like, okay, this person's just doing everything right, but yeah.
Us and Auglis. Us when it comes to hardpoint, and then Auglis when it comes to control. Auglis are the best control team I've ever seen in my entire life. Best raid control team I have ever seen in my entire life.
I watched that game and I was like, wow, like we're pretty good, like just respawn team in general. Like I think we're definitely one of the top respawn teams. But the way Orglis did it is like it made us look like it was varsity versus like JV or something like that sort. Like they were just ahead of everything. Like how they held the point. Like the moment they killed all four, they were just stacking points. They were just stacking the points. Like I was like, yo, this is like it looked really different.
We played raid control versus Amelia Strays and won 3-1, I think, and it was comfortable. They played us on that and they made us look silly. They made us look like we didn't have a clue what was going on. And fair enough to Auglis, they are an absolutely incredible team. They're very good at S&D as well.
Yeah, I mean S&D, we'll get there, right? I think that's just something that we're improving every week, and I'm not worried about it. I think this team has what it takes to win, and it just comes down to who's more prepared that day itself, and time will tell.
It's only been a recent problem, so I'm not really, we're still working on it. Obviously, I'm concerned, but it's not like we're woeful or anything. It's just a bit of a purple patch.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to the final section of the podcast. As you know that uh, subliners, they had a player wasn't able to get his visa, and so they were trying to call up someone from the challenger scene, right, to help to play with them in the major. There were just talks about people turning down offers, and just saying no outright. What are your thoughts on that?
Blows my mind. Blows my mind. You have the opportunity to play with a top 3 team. Back yourself. Have confidence. That is an opportunity you won't ever get. And if you do well, you set yourself up for next season, in my opinion. One thing I was disappointed was I wanted to see Saints on New York. I really like Saints. I learned a lot from him, and in the short space of time, and I really wanted him to see him play with Hydra again. I think that would have been amazing. He's had he's had a very tough couple of years out of his control, and if I'm not going to say too much, but one day when he tells his story, then you will truly respect him as a person, and you will understand everything that he's gone through, and he's still competing at the highest level. So I really, for this redemption story, or this fairy tale story, I wanted to see him play with Hydra again on New York, and especially with how good he is. He's definitely been proving himself.
I mean, playing devil's advocate, right? Like, I think I can see why some people would say no, simply because it wasn't a guaranteed contract. And so, we have a cup coming up, like that's cash, right? Especially if you're coming from one of those top teams, you're not by an org. And let's say, you go there and then they're like, oh, okay, you play the major, and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, we don't want you anymore. Your team finds a replacement for you, and then so that way, when and we're towards the end of the stretch, at the end of the season where champs is coming up, and so you're trying to find the best team, because I don't know what the prize pool is for champs. Do you have a clue, or like what was it last year?
It'll be like 500,000 for each region, something like that.
Okay. That's a good amount. I can see why players would be a little hesitant. It's like it's not a guaranteed contract. They could be losing their spot on one of the top, AM teams. But do you think that's still the move, or if it was you, like, would you have done it? Like, been like, I would take that chance, and if even if I don't do well in the CDL and I get replaced, or they find a replacement for me down the road, like what?
Okay,
Yeah.
that is understandable. I mean, it depends on the team that you're on, but you are getting paid on the 40-day contract. I think you do get a bit of the prize money. Again, it's just based on the certain situations. If you think you're on the best challengers team, I can understand why you wouldn't want to leave, especially when there's a lot of money to be made in the next month. But then again, you're missing, one cup and one open, I guess. So
Mhm.
it's just an individual circumstance, and I do understand it.
Yeah, well, I thought it was crazy. I was like, man, like Sideliners aren't a bad team at all. Like they're a top three team, right? So to say no, it's crazy, because I think, yeah, I mean, there's just been, I don't want to go into it too much, but yeah, there's just been a lot of just, players dropping out of the league, players like, just not wanting to go, just to protect their stock, right? And I guess to go on that, like, do you think that's the right move? Like players not wanting to go on other CDL teams to protect their stock?
I do. I think it's incredibly intelligent. I think stock plays a big role. Politics plays a big role in a player's career. Once you have a negative stigma, it sticks with you for quite a while. So in Decimate's case, I think what he did was intelligent, and I think he's backing himself for an expansion if there ever is, or a roster change in the CDL for next season.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, and I guess the last hot topic, to close this out is, to talk about the Adderall situation in COD. You know, what's your take on it all?
I don't think it should be allowed whatsoever. I think there's a reason why it's banned in Europe or in the UK in particular. I think my education on Adderall in the US isn't that great, but apparently even in sports you need a type of form, and in certain traditional sports in America it's completely banned. So if that's the case, I feel like COD, should follow suit. It's not difficult, in my opinion, for the CDL to undergo urine tests or saliva tests, to detect for Adderall. It's cheap, easy, quick to do. So it's there are definitely alternatives with testing for Adderall, and I think that should be the case for any drugs in COD. And I think if the franchise wants to emulate traditional sports and traditional franchising systems, then this is a path that they need to go on to really sort of legitimize COD as an esport, and as a like a competition. So I think it does need to get banned, and in most cases, you shouldn't be allowed to take Adderall. And I think it's my opinion with Adderall. It does more harm than good. The fact that you can easily reduce your tolerance for Adderall and then develop an addiction for Adderall, and you can, it leads down to Adderall overdose and the side effects of Adderall, and it can lead to, problems in the future. And I think, unfortunately, in the future with a lot of these players who relied on Adderall, the effects will show, and it will come in the next year, and you'll see players, potentially retire or potentially talk about it even more, about the negative effects of the drug on your system, and the fact that a lot of players don't take Adderall in moderation. A lot of players tend to overdo it because they simply aren't educated enough, or they're ignorant, or they think it's a wonder drug. I've seen a lot of amateur players in the challenges, take a lot of Adderall at overseas events, and it's like a normal thing. So I think the first step would be to ban Adderall in the CDL, and then undergo or implement tests for Adderall. I think that should be the way they do things.
What about players that are prescribed Adderall, where it's like they need it because of they have ADHD?
Well, even then, I might be wrong, so you might need to correct me on it. But apparently, even then, even if you're prescribed it in certain sports, there's a no tolerance policy on it. You know, that would be my opinion. There's a no tolerance policy in the UK when it comes to Adderall, even though you might have ADHD or whatever it is. So if the UK can do it, then I'm pretty sure the US should follow suit.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with the sports and what happens if you actually have ADHD or not, but yeah, I think the league, if they were to do something, no, they should. But it comes down to, with everything online right now, like how do you even check, right? When you're on LAN, it's definitely a lot easier. Get them to do some, piss in a cup or something along those lines. But with things being online, I could definitely see the difficulties of it, just like accountability. And I guess, like, yeah, go ahead.
With the CDL, I mean, it'd be a lot easier with the franchising. You can give urine samples and send it off. That won't be difficult to do. But obviously, in the challenges, there's no way to regulate it. I think it's lost. Trying to regulate it in challenges is a lost cause.
And then I guess slight topic for that, in terms, speaking of accountability, like what are your thoughts on cheating in the scene at the moment? Like, what's being done to prevent it?
Well, there's nothing being done. There's no anti-cheat. It's expected when you don't have an anti-cheat, people are going to cheat for money. People are cheating in league play. It's not, it's very difficult to prove who's cheating and who isn't, because when someone is hacking or when someone is cheating, they won't make it obvious. They're not going to, have red boxes on their screen for you to see. So if you're good at COD and you can cheat and you can hack, you will hunt. You'll make sure that you're not going to ever get caught. There's no way to catch it. There's literally no way to detect it. Everyone in the challenges could be hacking right now, but we would have no idea. Unless you've got red walls, and unless it's blatantly obvious in the playstyle, you're never going to know if someone's got like a extra aim assist or extra health, or they can move faster, or they can jump faster, or there's little micro hacks that you can implement for stuff like that. And then you've got little 2D radar hacks, and then you've got all these other things. It's just cannot prove it, and it's the fact that we've been forced to move to PC without an anti-cheat is abysmal in my opinion.
If a team were to cheat and win a cup, and let's say they got caught, do you think that they should be required to forfeit their winnings, or like what are like?
There's not, you can't do anything. Once the money's gone, it's gone. If the money hasn't gone into their accounts, then yes, you can possibly forfeit them. But once the money is into their accounts, and GB are pretty good with that, then you're never getting that money back. You just never.
Speaking of cheating, I think someone posted a clip that I saw on the timeline. I think it was someone from Team War, where they lost a cup because I think it was.
I remember. I know exactly which one you're talking about. The
Yeah.
Moscow one.
Yeah, the Moscow clip. I think he was by the buses, right? Or was he
Right
by
at the back.
bus?
Yeah, and he's pre-fired him on the corner. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
just, again, without an anti-cheat, we don't know if he's cheating or not. We don't know if he's the next big thing or if he's just cheating. That's the problem with that, having an anti-cheat. We can't give players who are genuinely good the credit that they deserve, because there's
Mhm.
always going to be an asterisk around their name. Hence why we're going to need lands back. But even then, it's still, you can never know.
And I guess final topic on cheating. The I see a lot of people saying what they use what the Luti method. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Absolutely, yeah.
Like the Luti. What is that method?
You basically switch off your computer, start recording on your phone, and then you have to record yourself, start on your computer, logging in, and then joining a lobby, and then that's it. That's literally it. But you can get around that. Apparently, there's ways to get around that.
That's insane. No one is safe. No one is safe in
When
this scene.
when there's when there's so much money on the line, when people wanna, people are cheating in league play for no reason, just for the fun of it. People are gonna do it in challenges. I don't know why people don't understand. Yes, okay, maybe your cheats aren't gonna help you win, but it's going to still give you an advantage because you can do it. you know it's just a difficult one. Cheats aren't going to win you a cup. That's not how it works. Right, COD isn't that kind of esports where cheats will have a massive influence on whether you win or not, because of the knowledge required, the teamwork. Even if you've got aim hacks, if you're getting shot by two of my teammates, you won't win in that gunfight. That's just not how it works. But it's still going to give you an advantage.
But if you have walls for S&D, like doesn't that give you a huge advantage?
Yes and no. It's difficult to explain. If you've got walls, but you're playing a structured team, very difficult to get any sort of advantage. Okay, maybe if in a 1v1, right, possibly. But
Mhm.
COD is a game where having hacks, in my opinion, or cheats isn't the be all end all. You still need to have some sort of knowledge. And this is why I was explaining earlier, where if you were a very good player, you could hide having hacks and having, if you've got something where you don't miss, if you're a good player, nobody's going to question that.
Mhm.
People are going to think you
Yeah.
don't miss anyway, but you've got that 0% chance of missing. People aren't going to say anything anyway because they know you're good. Or if you've got
Mhm.
if you've got walls or a 2D radar, like, people aren't going to question good players, established players, if they've got walls, because it just it'd be like, okay, he's good, or he knows what he's doing, for example.
Mhm. Got it. Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it for me, and that wraps up episode 2 of the summit. Javed, thank you so much for your time, and
Thank you.
definitely very insightful in terms of hearing more about COD, hearing more about your experiences, and the problems that just go on in the challenger scene.
No problem. Yeah, thank you for having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, guys. Well, you can catch Elevate COD this weekend as we're playing in Open Cup number 5. No,
Number 4.
4. Open Cup number 4. And stay tuned for just more updates.